Now, I will be dealing with you today the dream of home and security. And I am actually referring to the great American dream. By the way, as a sort of introduction, Mr. Trump, or the President of the United States now, during his 2019 campaign, do you recall what was his slogan in the campaign? The slogan was, "Make America Great Again." That was his slogan in the campaign in the year 2024. Now he's back to the office of the presidency again. And before, last year, the core campaign slogans of President Trump was this: "Make America Great Again," "America First," there's so many in the list, "Never Surrender," "Too Big to Rig," "Swamp to Vote," drill, "No Tax on Tips," "Make America Healthy Again," "Make America Greater Than Ever and Before," and so many other brands of slogans. Now this picture over on the screen was published on NC Herald, and this was actually posted right after President Trump attended the Pope's funeral. And on the 3rd of May, it appears on NC Herald, and this is actually, you can see there, he really posted this. And he appeared to be what? Wearing the pontiff clothes, the headgear and the clothes. And this is 1 week before the announcement of the new Pope. He posted this before Vatican had voted for a new Pope. And there is a message in this. It means that the next Pope would be from the United States. This is what he meant. And a few days ago, what happened? The new Pope actually was this Pope, Leo XIV, was from the United States, Cardinal of the United States. So you can see that there is a message from President Trump a week before, and now after that, the new Pope was what? From America, from the United States. So what are the people's dream? When I was in the Philippines, when I was small, we have this, we heard many things that people wants to go out the country, and one of the country that they want to go was to enter the American waters and sing the American flag. That was the people's dream, to see the American waters and see the American flag. That was the great American dream we have in the Philippines. But with all the challenges that pose against the United States, it is still the greatest country on earth until today. When we talk about inflation, economy, and everything that we hear, it's a trade contest with China. America is still what? The greatest country on earth. But what does the Bible say about the future role in world affairs? Now let us turn to, Revelation 13 as our key text. In Revelation 13. So, and before we go directly to the prophecies of the United States, we need to look at some of the background surrounding the verses that affect the United States of America. That is in Revelation chapter 13. And what are we talking about when we think of beasts? In the figures of Daniel and Revelation, there were figures of beasts. And what we think about beasts as symbols in the book of Revelation. Right? So what do beasts mean? In Daniel chapter 7, that is, let us leave for now Revelation 13. Daniel chapter 7 explains the meaning of beast. These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth. In other words, in short, Daniel was explaining to us that when we speak about beast, it means what? It means kingdom or nations or country today. For the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, as explained in the Bible. So beast means civil or political power, sometimes connected to church structure or ecclesiastical structure. That is king and their kingdoms. That is the meaning of beast. Now let us turn to Revelation chapter 13. Now we'll just start in verse 2, reading in verse 2 of Revelation chapter 13. Now we will not explain or read the whole chapter, but we will just take some of those important highlights that we want to take out for today. And the beast which I saw, so we can paraphrase like, and the kingdom or the nation which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power and his seats and great authority. We know that the dragon symbolized Satan. So that's why in Daniel chapter 7 we find that the same beast representing various nations with specific characteristics. So we can have comparison with Daniel chapter 7 and the beast of Revelation 13. So going back to Daniel chapter, in the book of Daniel, we have beast, the lion with wings, that represents Babylon, and their characteristic is what? Full of pride, exalting men rather than God. You remember Daniel chapter 4 verse 30, that Nebuchadnezzar once said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of my kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? So he took the honor to himself. He was saying that if not because of me, this great nation will not be established. That was his proud boast. But after Babylon, we have next in line in world power, which was Medo-Persia. And the characteristic is cruel, because Medo-Persia issued a decree to annihilate the people of God. Remember the days of Ahasuerus or Xerxes, the days of King Esther? He issued a decree that all Jews would be annihilated at certain day. So that was during the time of the Persian Empire. That corresponds to Iran today. Babylon corresponds to modern Iraq. And the third kingdom that ruled the world was Greece. From year 331 to 168 before the Common Era. Greece, the characteristic is that exalting reason above God's word. There are so many philosophers, they're wise men. As you know, like Aristotle, Socrates, and who else, Brother Michael, you know? There are so many of them. Mathematicians and scientists from Greece. And because they taught themselves to be wise, they thought that their knowledge is above the Word of God. And the Apostle Paul, speaking to the Corinthian believers, casting down imagination and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Paul is giving a hint that there are some who exalt their knowledge above the knowledge of God, above the Word of God. And that is one of the main characteristics of Greece. And that's why we have today, you know, we know even today some of those philosophers and scientists and wise men, we use their sayings. And the fourth kingdom after that was Rome. All four nations persecuted the people of God, including Rome. But only Rome presumed to change the law of God. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. He presumed to speak words against the Most High and think to change what? Times and laws. So among the kingdoms that rule the world, only Rome dared to say, I changed God's law. All right? So the four beasts that we saw is actually all the characteristics can be found in the beast of Revelation 13. The leopard-like beast. So from the study of church history, comparing it with Bible prophecy, we find that the beast of Revelation 13, the first beast, is a representation of a civil and religious power vested in the Roman Catholic Church. But in verse 3, this power received a deadly wound. In verse 3, and I saw one of his head as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. So one of these heads, because this beast had 7 heads and 10 horns, and one of that head was wounded to death. We will not explain that, but as the prophecy tells us that this wounding is the same as going into captivity. It was inflicted when the Pope was taken prisoner by Berthier, the French general of Napoleon. And the papal government was for a time abolished in the year 1798. Yeah. It happens February 15, 1798. The French soldiers led by Berthier went to Rome and captured Pope Pius VI. They exiled the Pope to Valence, France, and for 1 year in prison, he died. So the papacy, the papal government, received a deadly wound in 1798. And about the same time, in 1798, another beast with lamb-like horn arise. You know, you see the coincidence here? The papal beast received a deadly wound in 1798, but at the same time, another beast was coming out from where? From somewhere, from the earth. In verse 11 of Revelation 13, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. But what? His mouth is what? He speaks as a dragon. A lamb-like horn beast, but the mouth is speaking as a dragon. So this beast is coming up out of the earth. So the four beasts, Sister Telefoni, Sister Nat, the four beasts in Daniel chapter 7 were coming out from the sea. See the difference? It came out from the sea, while this beast that we are talking about in verse 11 of chapter 13 of Revelation was coming out not from the sea, but from where? From the land, from the earth, not from the sea. So the explanation here is that instead of overthrowing other powers to establish itself, like for example in Daniel 7, when Babylon came to power, another power came to overthrow Babylon. And that was Medo-Persia. And then came Greece, overthrow Medo-Persia. And then came Rome and overthrew Greece. But this beast in Revelation 13 verse 11 is different, because instead of conquering or overthrowing other powers to establish itself, the nation thus represented must arise in territory previously unoccupied and grow up gradually and peacefully. So coming out of the earth is like a plant growing what? Growing gradual and peaceful. I don't know, we have a tree at the back of this church. When I came here, that was still a small tree. But I never noticed that it grew. I just trim it, but I never noticed that it really grew, because I could not see the difference at all throughout the years. So this is how this nation came out from the earth, gradual and peaceful. In other words, it could not then arise among the crowded and struggling nationalities of the old world. The old world are the three continents in Europe, in Africa, and in Asia. So this power will not rise among those struggling nationalities like the Roman Empire, like the Ottoman Empire. So it will not come out from there. So because the old world were turbulent, wars has been there, you know. Even if we read that in the book of Genesis, in the days of Abraham, the kings of the world and the other kings combined together and went to war against Sodom and Gomorrah. So there has been war in that place ever since. So that is a turbulent sea of people and multitudes and nations and tongues. So this beast must be sought in the western continent, not in the other side, in the eastern parts of the world. I mentioned Europe, Asia, and Africa. So this power will not come out from there. It is in the western side of the world. Western continent, I mean. And the question is, what nation of the New World was in 1798, on the same year that the Pope was captured by the French army? So what nation of the world was in rising was in 1798 rising into power, giving promise of strength and greatness and attracting the attention of the world. The application of the symbol admits no question. Where is that? One nation and only one meets the specifications of this prophecy. It was not China. It was not Japan or Russia. It was not what? It is not Mongolian Empire, although it is the largest empire in the world, or the Ottoman or the Islamic Empire. But this power that we are talking about in 1798 points without any doubt to the United States of America. So reference for this is the Great Controversy, page 440. You can read that. So this beast that had a lamb-like horn but speaks as a dragon points without mistake to the United States of America. So further explanation, we have that the beast, this kingdom, this nation, was seen coming up out of the earth. And according to the translators, so this expression coming up out of the earth, it is an expression and it is translated coming up literally to what signifies grow or spring up like a plant, as a plant. And as we have seen, this nation must arise in a territory previously unoccupied. It grows by itself. Of course, humanly speaking, it grows by itself, but our view on the prophecy that with the help of God, aid of God. So why does the Bible, why does the prophecy, why does he add this phrase coming up coming up out of the ground like a lamb? He had two horns like a lamb. So why it was added, this expression had two horns like a lamb? Well, the only answer is that it must be for the purpose of denoting the character of this beast. The two horns like a lamb means his character, showing that it is not only of a very innocent and harmless demeanor, ostensibly, but also what? That is a very youthful power, a young power. 1798, United States of America is just a young power, just 2,000 years. It's different when we talk about the Ottoman Empire that ruled the three continents of Europe, Africa, and Asia for 600 years. The Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire rules for 2,000 years. But this American power is just more or less 200 years already. Okay? So how long we have here? In the year 2022, that is, this power was only aged 224 years. That was in year 2022. So in other words, it would be 227 years already, 2025. And how many presidents? 46 presidents. If we include President Biden, 47. Okay? So for more than 200 years, there were 47 presidents that rule as the head of the state of this youthful power. So the horns of the Lamb are horns that have but just begun to grow. So the lamb-like horns indicate youth. As a review, it indicates youth, innocence, gentleness, fitly representing the character of the United States when presented to the prophet as coming up out of the earth in the year 1798, the same year that the papacy received its deadly wound. And there were exiles, there were Christians that flee to the Western continents because of persecution from Europe. You know, how they dare to do that? Because of the discovery of the new continent by Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama. With this exploration, these are the age of exploration. So the Christian exile who first fled to America sought an asylum from royal oppression and priestly intolerance. And they determined to establish a government upon the broad foundation of civil and religious liberty. So they were there, they went to America, to the Western continents, with a purpose to free themselves from civil and religious persecution, civil tyranny and religious persecution. They went to America to escape from this tyranny. And yeah, the states at the time form some documents. They call it the Declaration of Independence. And in that Declaration of the Independence sets forth the great truth. What is the great truth, brethren? All men are created equal. For some could not accept that. Why? Yes, because of control. But besides that, some people might think, am I equal to a slave? Is the master equal to a slave? Because slavery at the time is prominent. In Europe, all over the world, slavery is rampant. So that's a question, but this Declaration of Independence sets forth the great truth that all men are created equal and endowed with the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know this expression, inalienable rights. When you go to, for example, if you migrate to America, they will call you as an alien there. You are an alien. But our right as a human being is inalienable. What does that mean? That wherever you go, you have the right to enjoy life, freedom, and to be happy. Wherever you go. So you are not alien. You are not a stranger to life. You are not a stranger to freedom or liberty and happiness. But of course, as your status as an immigrant, you are still an alien, but your right to life, to freedom, to pursuit of happiness is inalienable. Right? So that is the basic concept that was set forth in the Declaration of Independence. And the Constitution guarantees to the people the right of self-government. In other words, they have the right to participate in governing the country, providing that representatives elected by the popular vote shall enact and administer the laws. And what do you call, we have a parliament in New Zealand, we have a parliamentary form of government. But you know, in America, what form of government they have? That is a democratic republic. Democracy, majority rules. That is in the democratic form of government. But in a republic, that is what? it is through representation. Yeah, in a republic, it is through representation. But since this country is a self-government, so it is a combined form of a democratic and republic government. So freedom of religious faith was also granted, every man being permitted what? To worship God according to the dictates of his what? Conscience. In other words, you are free. Either you worship in Islamic form or any form, you can do that. Why? Because the government is granting everyone to worship God according to the dictates of his conscience. That is a freedom of religion. Unlike some other countries that there's no freedom of religion, like in China, in some Muslim territories, you do not have the freedom to worship God according to the dictates of your conscience. But in America, you are what? That freedom is granted to everyone. That's why republicanism and Protestantism became the fundamental principles of the nation. These two principles, are what? The secret of its power and prosperity. So how do we, if you are an American, how do we make America great again? Two secrets that are here. The secret of being republicanism and Protestantism. These are the secret of its power and prosperity. But if we take out these fundamental principles, any nations of the world would go down. Any nations of the world would go down. Because in general, these are the secret of prosperity, granting freedom to every citizen of the country, especially religious freedom. Freedom to life, freedom to worship God according to the dictates of his conscience, and freedom to be happy, Sister Anna. Yes, freedom to enjoy life to the best. And that's why the oppressed and downtrodden throughout Christendom have turned to this land with interest and hope. They went to America, and millions have sought its shores, and the United States had risen to a place among the most powerful nations of the earth, even in the time of Ellen White. It has what? It was coming out as one of the most powerful nations of the earth. Now, what was the purpose of those people going to the United States? The object of those who first sought these shores was to establish what the world had not seen for ages. A church without a pope and a state without a king. And this refers mainly to the European countries, to the Catholic countries. We don't put down our Roman Catholic brethren, but we are stating here historical facts. Okay? In other words, those who escape, those who run away to America and establish a nation there, they want to establish a different setup of religion and government. That is, a church without a pope and a state without a king. Expressed in other words, this would be a government in which ecclesiastical should be separate from the civil power, and civil and religious liberty reign supreme. Church and state separate. So in some form, two kinds of power everywhere exist. These are the civil power, as in the state, and the spiritual power, as seen in the church. It's like, for example, in the old days, going back in Europe and in Asia. So similar to the Roman Catholic, the Arab world are also, especially the Muslim world, are also combining state and church. In almost every country, these powers are blended together in one, and both are in the hands of the rulers and not in the hands of those people. And that is very dangerous when these two powers are controlled by the rulers of the country. It is dangerous, I would tell you, in historical facts. It is really dangerous. It would result to what? Persecution and tyranny. Yes, that's history would tell us. It's not a conspiracy theory, but it is a historical facts. But the American Republic presents the first instance in the history of the world in which these two powers are separated. And both are reserved by the hand or by the people in their own hands. See? So there is a contrast here. Two powers. One is controlled by the rulers of the territory of the kingdom. But in America, these two powers are in the hands of the people. And they are separate, not blend. But they are separate. So it is a government by the people, for the people, and, there's a saying here, a government by the people, of the people, and by the people. And for the people, of course. So it is a government by the people or controlled by people. And it acknowledges them as the fountain of all authority. So in other words, the source of all power are the mass of people. You, in other words, the people, the ordinary citizens are the source of this power, not in the hands of the rulers. So we have a state here, as explained in Revelation. We have a state without a king and a church without a pope. A church and state are separate. And civil power recognizes the equality of all men before the law. So the most important, brethren, I believe that even if there's a pope and there's a civil power, once they are blended together, whether without a pope or without a king, if they are blended together, the church and state unite, still it will result to the same thing, persecution. But the thing in the United States, in their history, is that these two powers are there in the hands of the people, and one thing is they are separated. As long as they remain separate, it will bring good to the citizens of the nation. So, and the spiritual power acknowledges the right of every man to worship God according to his own convictions of what God requires. Here are the two horns like a lamb. The Article 4, Paragraph 4 of the United States Constitution said that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. No religious test, according to Article 6, shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. In other words, you can be a candidate for any government position, whether you are a Muslim, a Hindu, or any religion you have, because religion is not a test. No religious test shall ever be required. So it is a democratic republic form of government. So in the First Amendment of the Constitution, it says as well, very important, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. You know the reason why we are free to conduct religious services? Because of this First Amendment. Yeah, that's the reason we are free to gather every Sabbath. Because of this First Amendment. No law that would be passed or made to prohibit gatherings or meetings for religious purposes. But if persecution will want to come, then they have to take down this First Amendment. So this is a very important thing in the Constitution of the United States. In other words, for us to enjoy, for people in America to enjoy freedom to gather. This is it. And also, this First Amendment allow the people to have a meeting, whether it is political or religious. They are free. So these articles profess the amplest guarantee of civil and religious liberty and the entire and perpetual separation of church and state. And what better symbols that could be given than two horns like a lamb? So that's another insight for having the two horns like a lamb. But what happened? What happens, Sister Anna? Brother Mosi, to these two horns like a beast. Later on, he will speak like what? Like a dragon. Yes. And the prophecy pointed out, and he spake like a dragon. So with all these lamb-like appearances, the real spirit by which he is actuated is that of the dragon. So this beast, the real spirit of this beast is what? Is dragon. The devil. Because out of the abundance of the heart, the Bible says, the mouth speaketh. So the spirit of heart, the spirit inside is the dragon. So it must speak what? Like the dragon. Okay? So to clarify that, we have Revelation 13 from verse 12 it says here that he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So in other words, this beast that we are talking about that represents the United States would prepare the way so that people would worship the first beast. Who was the first beast in Revelation? That's a papacy. And some in a religious circle, especially in the Seventh-day Adventist circle, they were surprised, like the Pope now is from the United States. The papacy, which is the first beast, having a Pope from the second beast country. That is the case here. That is the case. So it is combined in one person. But of course, that's what how we understand, or the Adventists understand, the prophecy of Revelation 13. And it's when it speak as a dragon, another step that he will do is this. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of these miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had a wound by a sword and did live. So we are familiar about, we cannot discuss right now about the mark of the beast and the image of the beast. The lamb-like character is first exhibited, and this is to deceive the nations. Then the dragonic character, the real character of the beast, will appear. See how smart is that? So the lamb-like character first appear, and then later on, Brother Peter, Sister Teruro, the dragonic character will manifest. So the two-horned beast gives power to the image of the first beast to act a part like that of the beast in warning upon the saints. In warring, in fighting against the saints, the people of God in these last days. So remember, Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The dragon represents what? Represents Satan. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the woman, with the church, with the followers of Christ. But the dragon will not appear as a dragon. He will use an instrument, and he will use what? The first beast, the second beast, to persecute the people of God. So the dragon in all ages, ever since, he used so far three instrumentalities to persecute God's people. First, the Roman Empire, which is a pagan in religion. The next was the papal Rome. And the third is this lamb-like horned beast. He will use that to persecute God's people. And the third beast here, or the beast, or the second beast of Revelation chapter 13, will make an image to the first beast. That means that to act a part like that of the beast in fighting or warring upon the saints. So as the lamb-like power of this beast represented by its horn is not in accordance with its draconic character, as exhibited in its exercising all the power of the first beast, we think the conclusion a reasonable one, that its period of mildness and deception precedes that of its tyranny and oppression. And we shall notice hereafter what this power does in causing the world to worship the first beast. But that will be in another study. So, amazingly, the book of Revelation, especially Revelation 13, points to the final stage of the earth's history. The prophecy that is mentioned there are very relevant to our days. But let me end with this wonderful story. A story about a family. A family went to the United States, particularly to New York. They were going around in New York for the very first time in their life. Now they are having maybe family holidays. And they had visited many places, and among them was the famous Statue of Liberty. It is a Statue of Liberty. A woman was holding a torch, considered on the Rhode Island. Now, after an exciting day of going to that place, the little girl found it difficult to sleep that night. So in a family, there was a little girl, and they went home after visiting the Statue of Liberty. That little girl became restless and could not sleep at the night. And the father asked, "Why don't you go to sleep?" And she replied, "Dad, I'm thinking about that lady with the lamp out there in the dark." She was referring to the statue. And she said in an innocent tone, I am thinking about that lady with the lamp out there in the dark. She's all alone there. Don't you think we should be helping Miss Liberty to hold up the lamp? Don't we? Should we help Miss Liberty to hold up the lamp? What is that lamp? The light. Okay? Well, we can. Every one of us can. To help hold up the torch of liberty is the duty not only of one family, but of every true Christian throughout America and throughout the world. That includes you and me. So, brethren, we have a duty in order to enjoy freedom, to enjoy life, happiness, and freedom. Let us all together hold that lamp. Let us hold that lamp so that we will enjoy together the freedom and especially the exercise of religious freedom. May these lessons be taken into consideration into our homes and serve as a lesson till Jesus would come. Amen.